Alright, so the dust has settled on DLC 2, the Ancient Gods Part 2, whatever you want to call it. It has been settled. You either really like the DLC, or think it's okay, or you really don't like it. You're in one of those camps, basically. I was initially skeptical and didn't really get much out of the second DLC, but after listening to Hugo Martin explain kind of the thought processes regarding the Ancient Gods Part 2 and how he sort of went about making the DLC, or at least directing the DLC, it really got me itching to replay it, and I do enjoy the DLC. There is some issues, and I will get to them in a separate video. I actually have 3 scripted videos planned. Each part will go over, the World Spear, Reclaimed Earth, and Imora. I might go over the Dark Lord, who knows. But anyway, I have a trilogy of videos planned that will discuss every combat encounter in the Ancient Gods Part 2 and say whether I like them or dislike them. Very interesting video, please go check it out when it drops, but regardless, I've been playing the Ancient Gods Part 2 quite a lot recently, and I've gotta say, after replaying it, it's pretty damn good. I don't think it's excellence, but what id Software were trying to do is they were trying to make it the Return of the Jedi of Doom. I mean, for fuck's sake, DLC 2 even retools old enemies just like how Return of the Jedi reuses the Death Star concept. They were trying to make this finale just fun. This is where everything comes together, and this is where all of the action happens. It isn't supposed to be that challenging, but it's just supposed to be balls to the wall fun. And it is fun, depending on who you are, of course. I mean, if you get a kick out of playing really challenging Doom Eternal maps, wait for the master levels. Maybe you won't get too much out of it if you are an expert at Doom Eternal and really want to play the most difficult challenges that the game has to offer. I'm not going to say it inherently isn't for you, but it's not really something that will keep you going. And after a first playthrough, you'll be like, okay, that was cool, there's not much to master, and move on and wait for the master levels, and that's totally cool. The Ancient Gods Part 2 wasn't supposed to be the final Doom of Doom Eternal. It wasn't supposed to be like Plutonia, which I think is where audience expectations comes into play, because the previous DLC, well, I shouldn't say DLC didn't exist yet, but what I mean is, for the previous expansions for the Doom franchise, like the master levels for Doom 2, Final Doom, TNT and Plutonia, Thy Flesh Consumed for the original Ultimate Doom, all of these are harder, way harder than the original 2 games, and this is by design. It is supposed to test players who really want to get a challenge out of the original Doom. Doom 1 and Doom 2, I should say. And I think fans, especially after the Ancient Gods Part 1, that the Ancient Gods Part 2 would be this really challenging finale. But that was not the case. The Ancient Gods Part 1 was meant to sort of really challenge the player, as it did. I mean, maybe not for like these ultra nightmare runners, but for, the standard player, it was a pretty challenging experience. But with the Ancient Gods Part 2, instead of continuing that challenge factor and really sort of brutalizing the player with, the difficulty, they wanted to build the player up, with players feeling like a god, especially with the hammer, because that thing is pretty damn overpowered, and I don't think id Software are going to apologize for that. I think that's pretty much by design. It's basically id Software's way of saying, you hit the end of the road, you came on this journey with us, instead of punishing you, we're just gonna reward you with this badass hammer, and the hammer feels great. But regardless, the Ancient Gods Part 2 sort of subverted fan expectations, and while I don't think it's a perfect DLC, I think some of the combat encounters, for example, are a bit underwhelming. Not in terms of difficulty, just in terms of the content of the combat zones. And I think that's most prevalent in World Spear, but I'll get into that later. But anyway, I think the Ancient Gods Part 2 subverted expectations and was more about satisfying the player and thanking them first and foremost for just sticking to this journey, and they just gave them some fun enemies to deal with, a fun new weapon to try out, and that's it. We'll call it a day. Either way, I loved hearing Hugo Martin's design philosophy regarding the Ancient Gods Part 2, but regardless, I want to hear what you guys have to say about the Ancient Gods Part 2. I enjoy it for what it is, man. I mean, I've got to say, I've really warmed to it over the past few days, and I want to hear what you guys have to think about it. That's going to do it for me. Please make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. It's going to be fun talking about this DLC for the following few months. After the initial sort of, complaints and, criticism over the difficulty, it's going to be fun talking about this DLC more analytically from now on. And, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.